Hola, queridos líderes del mundo hispano. El día de hoy le traemos un tema sumamente interesante. ¿Sabía usted que hay una alternativa de transporte al Canal de Panamá y que hay gran parte de la construcción que ya está por terminarse, permisos y demás, pero que nadie había visto a Chile? Sí, como lo escucha, Chile, siendo el foco principal de este proyecto tan interesante de logística para transportar no solo alimentos, sino también minerales y tierras raras. Bueno, para hablarnos de todo esto y también de la estrategia detrás de esta posición tan importante para América Latina, tenemos al experto Todd Callender. Él nos va a explicar sobre estos temas y también nos va a decir ¿cuál es la importancia de tener un puerto? Copia Port E, ahora disponible próximamente 11 de septiembre. Públicamente va a poder funcionar tal cual, con pleno derecho, como un puerto. Por favor, vamos a tener esta entrevista en inglés, pero la pondremos en español para toda nuestra audiencia. Oh, Todd, welcome to Líderes del Mundo Hispano.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, oh, we're so happy to have you because we know that the strategically the Panama Channel has been for a long time, for decades, the one of the key points, not only in the commercial side but also in the security, strategically area arena, the one of the most demanded. How you say roads for all countries to have a good trade um, logistics around the globe and to move all kinds of goods. But we recently heard about Copiaport and the interesting part of it is the specific natural characteristic that we were talking about in our previous conversation. Can you explain to the audience what is it so important that to have this like deep water port available?
Yeah, thank you. Yes. So the problem in South America generally is getting goods like minerals and food from the Cordoba district, for example, of Argentina to the Asian markets. Right now, there are only two choices. They can go through the Panama Canal or they can go through the Cape near Antarctica. It's very dangerous. In our case, the food supply is just on the other side of the Andes, and the mineral supply is largely in Chile. So, for example, China has 90% of their copper comes from Chile, as does gold, rare earth minerals like lithium. And our port is a natural deep water port because of an 8 kilometer long peninsula that sticks out into the Pacific Ocean and it requires no dredging. It's really just dropping some what they call stanchions into the water, and we're more or less open for business that can accommodate what's called a China Max size vessel. So that's 400,000 metric tons of cargo per trip. Right now, the food going to Asia goes from the East Coast on ports that you have to go through the Panama Canal or around the Cape. And even though those ports can take a vessel as big as 100,000 metric tons, they're only able to take 50,000 metric tons of cargo because of the shallow draft in the ports. Ours is deep water. Theirs is shallow. Even to the north in Peru, there's Chancay port. It's relatively shallow, so they can't move a lot of cargo one time. We have the ability to increase the amount of cargo by 800% per shipment. So this is a big deal for people going to China or cargo going to China or Asia generally. It saves also 15 days sailing time. So the citrus producers, other food producers who have perishable food can actually get their food to market 2 weeks or more in advance of current capability. So this is a really big deal. And of course, it has military applications because our port will be the only one on the Pacific side of South America capable of accommodating aircraft carriers, submarines, naval ships.
That's very interesting because not a lot of people we didn't know the technical requirements for this kind of ports, especially for this massive amount of how do you say of goods or specific requirements, technical requirements for military purposes. So another thing that I want to ask you is what does the Chilean people think about having this port in the country? Are they happy with it? What is the situation for this? Because we know on September 11th there is going to be like a final decision about the operation of this port, but we know that everything has been worked on. And a lot of people were worried about the ecological situation, but we
Yes.
know that there's a lot of things that have been prepared in advance. Can you share with the audience?
Yeah, it took more than 7 years, many, many millions of dollars to do studies that yielded 22,000 pages of exhibits to demonstrate to the Chilean government, the regulator, that our port will be ecologically sound and not have an effect on the region. We've had only a handful of people who didn't want to see this happen because there are turtles and penguins in the area. Our studies demonstrated that we won't have any effect on any of those things. And I think the people are generally really excited about this. Even the president's office, President Boric's office, has reached out to us asking for a joint press conference at the end of September after the approval. So we have very good indications the approval is coming because it means that there is now an opportunity for Chile to actually grow its economy. It's been stagnant for a long time. So even while there's mining operations happening, there's some food production happening, getting those goods to market has been nearly impossible for these people. The closest thing they can do is truck those goods 2,400 kilometers to the north in Peru in order to reach the Asian markets. And then, of course, we will have the opportunity to do that directly from our neighbors. So this is a huge economic opportunity for Chile, but also for South America because there is now a bioceanic rail that is in the works. Half of it has already been built from the east coast to the Cordoba district of Argentina, which is just on the other side of the Andes. And there are two mountain passes through the Andes that are capable of allowing a railroad to go through. Both of those passes land on our property effectively. So, in other words, we will be able to move cargo by rail directly to our property and then onto Asia at a fraction of the cost and a fraction of the time it takes to go through the Panama Canal or around the Cape. So it's not just Chile that will benefit from this. It's really the southern cone and even parts of northern South America that will now have access to the Asian markets quickly, efficiently, and inexpensively.
That makes this very interesting, as you mentioned. This is something that was not built before and that might bring a lot of a big development, economically
I think
speaking, and
so.
commercially to the region. That's very interesting. And so most of the goods will be you think will be exported to Asia or also to some other parts of the continent? I mean, I don't know, maybe it's easier to transport it to North America. What
The
is your
world.
knowledge? The
I
world.
think it's
Okay, that's
really the world. I think what happens is an enormous paradigm shift in how cargo goes around the world because so much of the cargo right now, even on the west coast of South America, has to go through the east coast ports. There just aren't enough ports to accommodate the amount of goods that are in demand, not just in Asia, but Australia, Indonesia, India, even the Middle East. It's easier to get there from the Pacific side than it is from the Atlantic side. So I think what you'll see, and even the west coast of the United States and Canada. So I think what you'll see now is a bifurcation of goods and services in South America. Smaller items will continue to go through the East Coast and the smaller ports, but the real money, the rare earth minerals, the green hydrogen, for example, things of that nature will use our port to access the rest of the world's markets.
That's very interesting, especially now that we know there's like a commercial competition around the globe
Huge.
for this kind of, especially for the energetics and also rare earths, so minerals. So, um, we know that this region is known specifically like Bolivia, Venezuela, all this like the north of Argentina. This region is very well known for the richness of their lands. Is this going to be, you think, like, this is placed strategically there, right? To make it easier for people to take all the mining from it.
Yes. Well, in reality, we own 220,000 hectares of land. That's roughly 850 square miles of property in this area, including the peninsula itself. We have mining on our property already. We have an abundance of natural resources that heretofore really could not be exploited because there was no way to get it to market. So, but simply by opening that corridor and being able to access the rest of the world on that Pacific side of the ocean, we're expecting a tremendous amount of investment, foreign investment in particular, which I think is really important for Chile and that area because they're really limited in terms of their ability to make revenues based on delivery of their goods.
Wow. And we know this port is a private port. So is there like any other, I mean, like a nation interested in getting it and buying it?
Yeah. Yeah, so we right now we are speaking to several sovereigns from the Middle East, from Western Europe, from Eastern Europe, and from North America. Some private equity firms. It seems to be in high demand. The reality is that nobody really thought we would get through the environmental process, that it was too onerous and too expensive, and it had been tried before. And now that we're at the finish line, everybody's interested. So, the size of it and the scope of it and the strategic importance, the military importance, the commercial importance is getting the attention of sovereigns. And so my sense is that a sovereign would like to buy the whole thing.
Yeah, that makes it, I think that would be the case. Um, And what does President Gabriel Boric thinks about it? Because we know he is very pro nature, very pro taking care of the environment. And
Yeah.
with all this process, how has everything going on his side regarding your experience on this project?
Well, I think that he and the rest of the government were very surprised that if you can imagine how many studies it takes, how many people we had to contract to do the most amazing studies you can imagine, including even acoustic studies under the water to make sure that we didn't bother the penguins. 22,000 pages of studies that we had to deposit with the Chilean government. I don't think any of them thought that we were going to get through the process. And then as we drew closer, and the regulator, SEA, was looking at it, and all the ministries involved gave us approval after approval. 14 ministries were watching our project, and only after we got all the approvals did the president's office really take us, I think, seriously that this is truly ecologically friendly. It's an environmental friendly project. It's always been designed that way, minimum impact, and everything, unlike some of the other ports, at this stage would be containerized with the idea to ensure that there isn't spillage of grains or ore or anything else. So it's really been an environmental focus for us from the beginning because we know that Chile is ecologically very conscious. And I think everybody was very surprised at how ecologically friendly this has turned out to be.
Oh, that sounds really good for the audience, and I think for several people in the audience who might be concerned, because we know that unfortunately several projects of this nature have been not that how do you say, environmentally conscious about the effects and the impact they have. And we've seen a lot of things not going well, but we're
Yes.
happy to hear. That's why we were interested on the case of this project, because there were so many things taken care of on the side of the environmental protection that we really want to share it with our audience. So the company that is doing all of this is like an American, British, or Canadian? Is it?
It's an
Where's the?
American Indian company. St. Matthew Assurance is the parent company that owns the entirety of Hacienda Castilla, including the port, and it's a Chiricahua Apache company, and it is ultimately owned by the Chiricahua Apache tribe. So we're very happy that Chile is observing the UN Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Persons. And of course, part of the process of getting the approval was an indigenous consultation. So we've entered into relationships with the local indigenous, which I think has actually made this all the more interesting and ecologically friendly. So right at this moment in time, this is effectively a territory of the Chiricahua Apache.
Oh, that's very interesting. Because I think this when you were mentioning this before, this really caught our attention too. Because on the other ports that we've been checking out and the projects that they've been doing in a smaller scale, not the size of this port, but smaller ports, they were especially we know of some cases we've made some research about some cases from like ports were made directly by Chinese engineers, and sometimes they don't, unfortunately, they don't really take care of the environment, and there are other things going around there. So that's why I ask you, like, where does the company that does all this process comes from? Because I think that also
Chile.
makes difference.
Chile. All of the contractors that we hired to do the environmental work were in Chile.
Oh, amazing. That's very, very good. Yeah, and we hope this is going to be like on the best of the Chilean people. I think they
Yeah.
were taking care for their environment and their land. That's very good. Um, Regarding these other people who want to buy it, like who you think are the top like contestants for this sport?
Yeah, it's a great question because at the end of the day, when you start looking at how efficient this is and how we will be competing directly with the Panama Canal effectively, this becomes a geopolitical issue. And we've found ourselves in a little bit of a trade war between China and the United States, both of which have expressed interest in our property. But even the Middle East players, the European players, are all looking at this as a strategic asset, as a footprint in South America, because what you said earlier is correct. It's a resource-rich area. Chile is abundant with resources that are largely unexploited, and some of them is literally the resources are just sitting there and they can't get to market. So it's a tremendous opportunity, not just from a commercial perspective, but also from the military perspective that there's an enormous amount of interest in Antarctica right now. There is a high-speed fiber optic cable being run to Antarctica. Another one's being run to Australia, and another one's being run to Asia, to China. In fact, I think it's Shanghai, if memory serves. We enjoy a tie for the first place in the world for converting solar into electricity effectively on our property. We have a solar farm already. We produce electricity and sell it effectively for free during the daylight hours. So for technology companies that are looking to put computer servers and data centers there, we have fresh water, we have salt water, we have room, lots and lots of room, and we have free electricity. So all of those things come to play to make this a very strategic asset for anybody, but specifically for governments that are concerned about the future of their countries and being able to feed their countries. So China only has 17% arable land, meaning that they can only farm 17% of their total area. Most all of their food comes from South America. Most of their minerals are coming from South America. And the United States likewise. ConAgra, Archer Daniel Midlands, they are all in the same area. So what we represent is access to those resources that they don't otherwise enjoy.
Yeah, for sure. Especially now that they will have a way to transport them efficiently and also in larger amounts because of what you were saying. This will increase a lot the amount, right, of goods that can be shipped in once. I don't know, like like twice the quantity that is being
At
able
least.
to vanish?
At least. Our numbers say an 800% increase over current ability. And not only that, but if you look at China in particular, and they're very thoughtful. They plan 100 years in advance. They had already anticipated in their Belt and Road Initiative, an autonomous belt of transportation around the entire planet, that our area would be the ideal place to run their Belt and Road Initiative. So it's not just stopping and starting in South America. It's actually goods leaving South America and making its way around the entire planet.
That's very interesting, especially considering the how big is China's market, especially regarding consumption of this kind of like food or goods. This is like a huge, huge market for the whole world. Regarding the project, is it over already, or there will be more construction to be done, or
We're just at the beginning. We had to get through the approval process, and hopefully on the 11th, we'll get the permission to start digging. I think it's more of a formality than anything because all of the other government ministries have already approved it. And then once we have that permit, our hope is to begin construction as fast as possible. We're looking for partners to do that at this moment in time, and we're entertaining offers to that effect. The amazing part is by virtue of not having to dredge, which is very expensive and time consuming, we would be able to start construction and begin operations in 18 months.
oh, in 18 months?
Yep.
Because I was reading that this project has like two areas, right? Two main like constructions or two main purposes of the port. Both of them will be done in 18 months, or you will start with one and then continue the other one.
Yeah, we're going to start with phase one. It's actually phase 1.1 out of phases 1.1, 2, and 3 is actually the first phase. So we'll start with phase 1.1, which is the food supply. It would be the ability to move the grain in particular from South America to Asia is the highest demand because believe it or not, the farmers in Argentina can only produce 50% of what they're capable of producing because there's no way to get their food to market. So the idea being that they can then produce, 50% more, 100% more, I should say, and then be able to provide that food to the rest of the world. So we're very bullish on that. So phase point 1.1 will start with the food. Phase 1.2 will be containerized goods and services, including potentially iron ore, or for that matter, lithium or copper or things of that nature, all of which would have to be stuck into containers because of environmental reasons to ensure that it's clean and it's safe. There's other ports in Chile that have been contaminated by shipping bulk and it's fallen off into the sea and it's polluted. So our dedication to being environmentally friendly, I think, will give us longevity. That and friendly Chileans to work with.
That's very interesting. Yeah, another question that just comes to my mind is because we know that you've been since the beginning with the project and you have the idea, you've been working so hard as a company to make it all like following all the regulations. In case that it's sold to someone else, do you think they will take care of this meticulously, like very like to the details to really keep this purity of the project?
Yeah, I think they have to. In the process of getting the environmental approval, what we've come to understand is the dedication of the Chilean government and the Chilean people, for that matter, to ecology. And I don't think they're going to tolerate anything but the best practices. And that's certainly built into our business plan that includes town planning, by the way, to support all of this. Everything that we've done is designed around low impact from an environmental purpose and as friendly as possible. And I think that kind of mentality has to be a part of the project going forward, or it simply won't work.
Yeah, we really hope that way because, well, especially for the best for the people in Chile, right?
Yeah,
Because we know that when you were sharing about this project, we just fell in love with it about how dedicated the company was to keep all the processes in the like following everything. But that's what we would like in the future, because
yeah,
sometimes we see like, yeah, in the history we see a lot of things going on, right, when you pass the
sure,
ownership to someone else. And especially I think it also depends on the countries, because we've seen a lot of ports owned now by other countries, like especially China. As you know, our media is especially focused on checking out on China's um, activities, not only China but also of the CCP around the world. And sometimes they are not very ecologically friendly, or they
sure.
don't consider the countries they are in. Sometimes we see a lot of things going on that are not as they were planned to be, but later on they become very successful economically, like big. And sometimes it can just forget, and some people just keep like eyes blinded to this. So we really hope that this can be like
I think
taken
that's
care of.
true. I really do. I think you're right, and I think it's true, and I think that the government that we've been working with in Chile has made it a part of the process that these are likely to be conditions as a function of the approval and the continuing operation. My sense is that the Chilean government won't tolerate nonsense. So whether it's us or somebody else, we have to stick to what it is that we represented we're going to do.
Yeah, yeah, we hope the best. We hope that for all the people in China, yeah, I hope that this will be the case. It will be like a very good case for all Latin America, because if what you're sharing with us is just like a huge logistics node for a lot of things that can really boost the South America to its riches, concerning now the commercial side, but also like the military side. That's something we wanted to ask you, because now we know a lot of ports in South America have been bought by the CCP, by the Chinese Communist Party. Um, how important is it, like strategically, for the US to have a footprint there in South America now at this crucial time that we see all these things going on with Venezuela, with in Brazil we have Lula, also a socialist government, a
Yeah.
lot of socialist governments in South America, including Chile. Well, but we have Milei in Argentina, like on the other side. How important do you think this position is for this like global um, balance of power and what's going on now in South America?
I think you've got this exactly right. A balance of power is what's necessary. So if you look at what's happened in Africa, effectively China has taken over Africa. And as a result of that, you have an imbalance because Africa is also rich in resources. And certainly the last administration in the United States had a hands-off policy. They were very friendly to China. They weren't going to interfere in any way. And now you have a new president in the United States who said his national security policy was trade, not war. And so I think that they're looking at this as a function of U.S. commercial interests that are helpful to people in South America rather than, a pure military. But the reality of the situation is that there is not another port. There will not be another port in South America that can accommodate the size of naval vessels the superpowers use in that area and throughout South America. And if you look at all of the interest in military traffic that's going to Antarctica, for example, the Russians built seven $1 billion icebreakers. Two of those icebreakers went to the north, to the Arctic. Five of them went to Antarctica. So we effectively would be the last port, the last staging area, the last opportunity to fuel to support Antarctic missions or even ones going towards Australia. So it's a critical piece to the geopolitical and geomilitary structure around the world. And I think the way you're looking at this is right, is there needs to be a balance of power in South America.
Yeah, on that sense, I was going to ask you if you got any comments about President Milei and the construction of this like the port, or also the impact that it will have with the bi- bioceanic railroad?
Yeah, so not directly from Argentina, but from some of the governors in that region, particularly as it relates to the food growing. We've been talking to them for the last 8 years or so, maybe even a decade, and they're very excited about the opportunity to do this. In terms of Argentina's interest, they are already invested in the first half of the bioceanic rail. So right now, the rail already exists going from the east coast of South America to the Cordoba district. Now it's only the other half, and there have been strategic talks between Argentina and Chile as it relates to customs issues of going across the border and whether or not goods could be bonded, for example, to avoid excessive taxation. Um, I think the Argentina should support this in every way they can because it can only improve their economy at the same time. So I've not heard from President Milei yet, but I welcome his call at any moment.
Uh, that's very interesting. Also, something that you were mentioning before, because we know that President Trump has been very outspoken about Greenland and about this North Pole, but I haven't heard a lot about the South Pole. But as you mentioned, we've heard that it's very rich in so many minerals. It's a very rich land, and a lot of countries are really interested in what's going on in Antarctica. So as you mentioned, this will put Capio Port E like in the as a very strategic point that a country should have a footprint there. So on your side, you think that what will be the scenario if one country like China gets it compared to if US gets it? Do you have like a different idea of how would be the different scenarios that can be faced by the southern continent?
Yeah, my concern is really simply this: by virtue of the size and the strategic importance of this port, whoever ends up owning this, if it isn't us, for example, is going to end up controlling trade in South America. So I would rather see somebody who's less interested in controlling the trade in South America, and I'd rather see somebody who wants to foster trade in South America. So it's two different ways to look at it. Do we restrict it for military purposes or an advantage, or do we encourage it and build partnerships? So I think it's a function of the way that one looks at it geopolitically. And I, of course, my personal preference and the partners that we are looking for are the ones that are going to help develop this for the benefit of everybody, not just for purposes of controlling, for example, who gets to eat in China or who gets to use lithium for their batteries or for their chips, things of that nature. So I really like what I heard President Trump say in his first term, which was, I think it was after his first meeting with President Putin in Sochi, and he said, our new national security policy is competition. We're going to go commercial and compete, and everybody wins. So that's the outcome that we're hoping for. That's the kind of partner that we're looking for.
Oh, that sounds great. Yeah, we really hope the best. We really hope that commerce, like a fair trade, like this,
Yeah,
like a healthy competition, right? Commercial competition
exactly.
for a prosperous nations. That will be the rule of law. Like, I mean, like, that will be the
Yes.
environment that we're looking for South America.
Yes.
Because
Because everybody wins, right? That's what we're after. We want everybody to win.
exactly. Oh, Todd, is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience? Something that is important for them to know?
Yeah, I really want to thank the Chilean government, not just for, allowing us the opportunity to get through this process, but we've learned a lot in the process, and I really appreciate very much how thorough and how professional they've been in the approach to all of this. It's very methodical. As an international lawyer, I do business all over the planet. And when you mentioned the rule of law, that actually made me think because the Chilean government has been very careful to observe every step of it. And I very much appreciate that as a lawyer, but I also appreciate that as a businessman looking for certainty in what it is we're doing. So I'm grateful to the Chilean government for their assistance in getting through this.
Wonderful. It's also good to mention the good performance of the countries when they do well, when they do follow the law, and
I think so.
when they work on the behalf of their nations, of their people. That's very good. So thank you, Todd, for sharing this important project with us, and we're looking forward for September 11th to see how things evolve, and for 18 months. So
You and me
I
both.
hope
This is
we
my
hope
pleasure. Thank you.
to
Thank
have
you for
you
giving me
back.
the opportunity. Yeah, I'm gonna do, I promise I'm gonna do it. I'll take pictures. So,
Yeah, please, we
thank
would
you.
like to share with the audience, and then we have to have a second interview to see
Okay.
how things went by.
Beautiful. Thank you
Wonderful.
for having me.
Thank you. Amigos, por favor, suscríbanse, registren las notificaciones y acompáñenos en nuestra siguiente entrevista. Muchas gracias y nos vemos en la próxima.